everyone. I'm here with a Q&A video. I put out a call on YouTube as well as on Instagram, asking people, just letting people know I'm having a Q&A. If you have any questions, let me know. I might have to split this into 2 videos, but we'll see how far we get today. But thank you to everybody who submitted questions. I really appreciate it. So the first one I want to address is, I'm filming this right now. If you're watching this later in the future, it is the end of May 2020. We've got the whole COVID situation, but also there is the whole situation that's going on in the States with, with violence towards African Americans, particularly by the police. And there's been a lot of demonstrations and protests going on about that. And so people have asked me, there was someone who said, hey, would you make a statement just saying, that you support non-white YouTubers and witches? And of course I support people who aren't white. I'm going to link below. Ann Maddox made a video about Black Lives Matter and about supporting people who are non-white, as well as, dismantling racism and colonialism. And she says everything just so much more eloquently than I could ever say. And, I'm here in Canada, and, I think sometimes as Canadians, we look at what's going on in the States and we think, oh, that's so terrible. And we project that those problems are over there. But, we have problems here too in Canada. And unfortunately, there is racism as well. And a lot of it here gets directed towards Indigenous people. But there is obviously, racism towards people who are not white, not Indigenous as well. So I just want to address that and just say that, of course, I am supportive of everybody, regardless of their background or color. And, I'm totally against things like racism and, sexism and, against people, violence and discrimination towards LGBTQ. And I realize I am coming from a privileged position. I'm white, I'm able-bodied, I am, I'm heterosexual, I'm a cis female. So I do recognize my privilege, and that's something that I continue to work on and want to make sure that I'm doing things to stand up. It's not enough to just be to be not racist. You also have to be anti-racist and say, make sure that you're standing up and pointing things out when you see it and calling to task when you see it, and you're actively working to make sure you're dismantling systems that support things like white supremacy and colonialism. So I would just want to say that, yes, I am, I don't support racism or any of that stuff. So, and I believe, Black Lives Matter and all of that stuff. So, I just wanted, somebody said, hey, will you say something? And I mean, of course I will. And if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you know how I feel about it. And Ann Maddox just says it all so much more eloquently than I could ever say it. But, for those of you, I know most of you that watch this are in the States, and I just want to say, I know that there's varying feelings about what is going on right now. And I just want to say that I hope that wherever you are safe. First of all, I hope that you were safe, that you were doing well. And I really feel for everybody with what's going on right now. So sending you my love. All right. So on lighter notes, other questions that I received. So the first one was recommendations for beginners in astrology, books, websites, videos, etc. So first of all, I would like to say, if you are new to astrology, a really great book, it's an oldie but a goodie, is The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need. That's a really great one for just getting a handle on things like the signs, the planets, what they mean in the different signs. It even tells you, kind of how to figure out your birth chart, because it was written before the internet. But you don't need to do all the math. A really great resource is astro.com, and I'll put a link to that below. Astro.com, it's a free website. You punch in your date and time of birth, and it will pull up your birth chart for you. So you've put in your name, time, place of birth. It'll pull up your birth chart for you, and you can see like, oh, my sun is this and my moon is this, and then you can look things up and figure things out from there. The other really great thing it does is it gives you every day a personalized horoscope just for you. This is not one of those like, oh, Leos today are gonna blah blah blah. It is specific to you and the transits that you are experiencing specifically. So it's a really wonderful resource if you are a beginner and you're looking at getting into things a little bit more in depth. Another book that I have that I would recommend for beginners is, where is it here? There's Parker's Astrology. It is a beautiful book. Again, really great for beginners. And it's just the only astrology book you ever need. It doesn't have a ton of like beautiful illustrations, but Parker's Astrology does. So I would highly recommend that as well. As for podcasts, I would say Ann Ortley does a weekly podcast where she talks about what's going on in the sky and how it's affecting everybody. And you can listen to her every week. She posts every Sunday, I think it is. She's wonderful. And it gets you an idea of kind of what's going on with the astrology weather. And she's so good at explaining it. So I would recommend her as well. If you're a little bit more advanced, like you know about the signs, you know the planets, you know what they mean, you know what, you have a little bit of ideas about transits and things, and you want to step a little deeper, I would highly recommend the Astrology Podcast, simply called the Astrology Podcast. It is more advanced. Like when I started listening to it, I'm like, what are they talking about? But the more you listen to it, the more you understand. And it's by Chris Brennan, who is an amazing astrologer. He does traditional astrology, Hellenistic astrology, and he has all sorts of guest astrologers on. He talks about the astrology weather. He talks about all sorts of topics, and he can really help you to dive deeper into those things. So those are places to start. There's lots of great resources out there, but I would start with those. Another one is, now that I think about it, a podcast called Astrology Bites. And it's just very short, like 10-minute podcasts that talk about things like what Jupiter means, or what Libra means, or like all these little bite-sized pieces of information about what the different planets and signs means. And she also sometimes has guests on as well, and she's known as the Tarot Lady, Teresa Reed. She's famous in the tarot community as well, so she's another great resource too. So that should get you started for sure. Okay, what advice would you give for staying creative, keeping up the habit, and getting your work exhibited? So I received a few art questions. The advice I would give for staying creative is making a regular practice. So what that means is you don't have to have like 5 hours on the weekend that you can devote solely to your art or whatever. You might have 20 minutes today. Take that 20 minutes and do something creative with it. If you make a block of time for yourself every day, and it can be a small block of time, or if you look at your schedule for the week and you say, okay, Saturday afternoons, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to draw, and you stick to that and you show up even when you don't feel like it. Because if you wait till you're inspired, you're probably not going to, get a whole lot done. But if you have a regular practice where you look at your schedule and you take those little bits of time that you have free and you do something creative with it, and it doesn't have to be like capital A art. Just follow whatever creative leanings. Like if you're curious about making a comic, maybe start looking into that. If you've always wanted to try watercolor, let yourself try it and let yourself have fun the way you did when you were a kid. You know, when you were a kid, we would do creative things and it wasn't like we had to be good at it. But now that we're adults, we feel like if I try something new, I better be good at it right away, or what's the point, right? And I think that stifles us. And also if we think that the art has to be great, that's a lot of pressure. So give yourself little blocks of creative time to just have fun and do something creative. I think that keeping up the habit really involves having a schedule. Like I work, I do this, I do readings for people, I also do art and play music and stuff. And the way that I keep that all together, plus being, a stepmom, is I have a schedule. I have to schedule out everything. And that's the way it works for me, so that I can get those things in, I can get those things done. As for getting your work exhibited, it sort of depends on a few factors. What I would say is, these days we have the internet, right? So if you are ready to show your art and to sell it, I would look at some of the online options that you have. There's things like Redbubble and Society6, DeviantArt. Although DeviantArt is kind of like a lot of people steal stuff off of there, but I would say look at Society6 and Redbubble for options for displaying your art on the internet. They're really great for, people can order prints, they can order you can have t-shirts with your artwork on. Look at it though, because each of those sites, there's a few different sites like that, have different arrangements for the percentage that you get, and some of them you don't get a lot of money back. Society6, I know prints you make more money than say on t-shirts or mugs or whatever. As for exhibiting in a physical gallery, look around at what's in your area. There's different kinds of galleries. Some run on grants, they run on government grants, and you have to apply for a show. And so you'll have to go to their website, look at what they might have times a year where you can submit an application to exhibit. You'll probably have to take photos of your work. You need to have a CV, like a resume of what you've shown. So those are kind of the more fine arts galleries. There's also commercial galleries as well. Again, you also have to apply to them, but they, if they think that your art is marketable and something they can sell, you can definitely talk to them. And then there's ones where you can pay to exhibit. And those tend to be a little more open to newer artists. So take a look at what's in your area, because it varies and different galleries are run different ways. So you might have to really look. So look at what the galleries are in your area. Go and look at them. Go look and see what kind of stuff they're exhibiting to see if you can try to find ones that kind of fit with the style that you're doing. And then don't be afraid to talk to people and just ask them. Ask them about, how they manage their exhibits, how you can apply. A lot of times you can go to a website and you can also see what they want for applications as well. There's also alternative spaces too. I've shown some of my stuff in a tattoo parlor that also had art hanging on the walls. Sometimes coffee shops will have art, or they want art to hang on the walls. So there's a variety of things that you can look into if you want to exhibit your art out there in the physical world, so to speak. Next question is, do you watch YouTube outside of tarot and pagan content? If so, what are your favorite channels? Yes, I do. I would say maybe 2/3 of the content I watch is tarot, witchy, pagan type stuff. And then the other third I watch is goth and alternative fashion. And so some of my favorite, I do watch some of the bigger YouTubers like It's Black Friday and Toxic Tears. But then I also watch, there's Heavy Metal Mama Goth, and Ligeia Resurrected, who are, relatively smaller YouTubers compared to some of the bigger other ones. And I really like when people do product reviews, or they let you know what they think of, they buy certain clothes or whatever, and they do a little review on it, makeup tutorials, that kind of thing. So I do watch some of those other ones. I definitely like to be inspired by people's fashion. I like to hear what people are listening to, maybe seeing, what concerts they went to, that kind of thing. So I do enjoy watching that. And she also asks, have you read any good books lately? Yes, I have. Right now I am reading 365 Days of Hoodoo. I just wanted to learn more about it because I hear people referencing it more and more, and I just wanted to learn more about it. And the person that wrote this is a professor and somebody who's been practicing it for a long time. And I believe in, researching from people who are actually raised in that kind of culture and all that kind of stuff. So yes, so I've been reading that. And then in our book club on in the Wild Witch Coven on Patreon, we're reading Psychic Witch. This is a wonderful book for foundational work. If you are looking at things like, what does grounding mean? What does centering mean? This is the book to get. So I'm going to have to go to part 2. I didn't say the names of the people who questions because I didn't know if they wanted me to or not. Thank you though to everybody who asked. I'm going to do part 2 next week. Like I said, we're doing that book in the Coven, in the book club. If you want to join, there'll be links below. I'll also put some links to the things I talked about as well. If you have any other questions, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you to my patrons. Big shout out to Jamie, Nathan, and Marie. You guys are awesome, amazing. I love you all. And I hope, like I said, you're all safe and well. And as always, peace and love and rock.